Okay, for this lesson we're going to look at exponent rules. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is called the product rule. So the idea here is we have to look at the example, and what this is basically x to the third times x to the fifth. And we know that if we break these things down, x to the third is equal to x times x times x. And x to the fifth is very much the same, x times x times x times x times x. Because we know that the exponents basically tell us how many times we are going to be multiplying, 3 times and 5 times. But then if we look down here, what we're really doing is we're multiplying these things, so we're just putting an extra multiplication symbol in between them. So what we end up having is, really, this whole expression here is x times 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 x. And if we basically merge it together into one whole thing, we end up getting, going back in the opposite direction, x to the 8. Because it's basically just x multiplied by itself 8 times. So same thing down here. What we have down here is we have y times y. Okay, that's not going to work. We have y times y times y times y times y times y. So that's 6 times for this one. And then we have over here y 9 times. So times y 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And essentially all we have to do is just basically count up the number of y's that we have. So we have 6 here, and we have 9 here. And if we do it all together, what we're going to end up with is y to the 15th power. And that brings us to what is the product rule. And the product rule is if we have a to the n times a to the m, and what that means is we have two values, we have two of the same base, so they have to have the same base, x, x, y, y, a, and we're multiplying them with different powers. All we're really doing is we are keeping the same base, and what we're doing with the powers is we are adding them up. So a to the n plus m. So we just add up the exponents. So if we look here at these problems, I want you to do a couple of these, but I'd like to try to give you a couple more examples. Let's look at this first problem over here. So what we have is 3x squared times 4x to the third. And basically it's kind of like a combining like term situation here. If we look at the numbers, the coefficients in front of the x's, we still have to multiply those like normal. So 3 times 4, and that'll eventually give us 12. But then we also have to now look at the x's. We have x squared, and we have x to the third. So this is x times x for the first one, times x times x times x. And so again, just like we did before, our product rule basically tells us all we have to do is add up the exponents. So this is really x to the 2 plus 3. Or if you're counting it up, it is just x to the 5th. And that's essentially it. 12x to the 5th power. Then we look over here. Well, let's go down to the bottom one, bottom right. So 6y to the 5th times 8y to the 9th. So we deal first with the coefficients. That's 6 times 8. That'll give us together, that'll give us 48. And then I'm not going to write this all out, but all we have to do is take our exponents, our 9 and our 5. We keep the base, y, and we get 5 plus 9 will give us 14. So our final answer is 48y to the 14th power. And please try the other two on your own. Okay, the second rule we have to look at is power to a power rule. And the idea here is what we have here is x to the 5th power, and that whole thing is to the 2nd power. So x to the 5th power is x times x times x times x times x. But what we're doing is we're squaring it. So what we're really doing is we're taking this whole thing and we're doing it all over again. Because we're squaring it. We're taking the number and multiplying by itself. And what itself is x times x times x times x times x. And we're multiplying these two things together. So the parentheses don't really matter in the end because it's multiplication. So really we don't even need them. So really what we're doing is we're just going to see how many x's we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this answer is just going to be x to the 10th power. Then we go down here, we look at it again. We look at this y to the third power. And what is our y to the third? Well, it ends up being y times y times y. But we have to do that a total of 3 times because it's the third power. So this again, y times y times y. And then one more time, y times y times y. And this all being multiplied, the parentheses don't really end up mattering. And all it is how many y's do we have? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So our final answer is y to the 9th power. And so our rule ends up being if we have some variable to a power, so we'll just call that power n, and that whole thing is to another power, that one is m, well, what we're doing here, we have 5 and 2, we get 10. We have 3 and 3, we get 9. What we're doing is we're multiplying. So a to the n to the m, a power to a power, means a to the n times m. We are multiplying the exponents for power to a power. So for this one, I'm just going to do one problem for you. Let's just do the second one, x to the 9th to the 2nd power, and I'm not going to write it all out because really all we have to do is use our rule. And remember what our rule is, we're just basically multiplying our exponents. So it's x to the 9th squared, and so all we're doing is we're multiplying the exponents. 9 times 2, x to the 18th. So please try the other 3. Now this last one, the shorthand version of it, it's pretty much like distributive property in a way. Let's look at what we have. We have x times y, and it's taken to the 3rd power. So we have to multiply it times x times y, and we have to do it a 3rd time, x times y. And the parentheses, again, really don't matter because it's all multiplication. Multiplication's commutative when we can rearrange things in any way that we want. So let's bundle up the x's. So we have 3 x's, and bundle up the y's, y, and y. And what we end up having is, well, we have x 3 times and y 3 times. So x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd. And this ends up being kind of like distributive property. If you have a power, if you have several things inside of parentheses to a power, all we have to do is take the exponent and bring it into both values on the inside. So here again we have x squared y to the 3rd. So that ends up being x times y times y times y times y times y. And it's going to be a total of 3 times, so I have to do that 2 more times. X times y times y times y. And move that over there. And then one more time. X times y times y times y. And I can again rearrange everything. I'm not going to do that here, but basically just combine all of your x's. How many x's do we have? We have x to the 6th power, because this would be 2 times 3. And for y's we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Y to the 9th power. So if you have, so our example here is, if we have a times b to the n, we would essentially distribute it in, and we would have a to the n times b to the n. And here's the last one. Let's see, I'm just going to do one of these for you. Let's try, looks like one of the hardest ones. Let's look at the bottom left one right here. 2a to the 4th, b, c to the 5th, to the 4th power. Now, probably what's going to be the hardest part is just taking the number to a power. We have to take this 2 to the 4th. But since it's an actual number, it's going to give us back something. So it's going to be 2 to the 4th power, so it's going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So this will give us 2, 4, 8, 16. So we're going to have 16 for that. And now everything else is basically, like I said, distributing into each value and multiplying. So rather than write this out 4 times, let's just go through it. We have a to the 4th, to the 4th. So 4 times 4, that'll end up giving us back a to the 4 times 4 is 16. 16th power. Then we have b. If there is no exponent, the exponent is 1. Everything is to the first power unless otherwise noted. So this is b to the 1 times 4 is 4. And then we have it again, last one, we have the letter c, and it is we multiply 5 times 4, and that'll give us 20 as our exponent. So 16 times a to the 16th, b to the 4th, and c to the 20th. So please try the other 3 on your own, and that is it for this video. Please leave any comments below.